I'm going to call our special school board meeting to order. It is Tuesday, December 7th. It is 5:07. And again, this is the Duluth Public Schools, ISD 709. It is our monthly committee of the whole meeting, but we are starting it out with a special school board meeting just for our public. When we have our committee of the whole meetings, we do not have the option to vote on things, and so if there is something of action that we want to take, then we have the ability to schedule a special school board meeting, and that's just the case tonight. We have an action item before us, but first I'll call on Clerk Oswald to take roll.
Member Eater.
Here.
Member Kirby is not here. Member Loeffler Kemp.
Here.
Chair Lopal.
Here.
I am here. Member Sandholm in person.
Present.
Member Trinka.
Here.
Superintendent Magus.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Here.
Is anybody else required to be here? Nobody told me. So everybody else is excused. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Clerk Oswald.
Oops, except I forgot to call on Secretary Patty Paquette and Secretary Duluth.
Thank you.
Thank you, sorry.
So, to open up our special school board meeting, we have one procedural item, an agenda item description is Resolution SP-12-21-3854. It is concerning our calendar year 22 calendar changes. It is an action item tonight. I'm going to first ask for a motion to accept, then I'll ask for a second, and then we'll have our discussion per parliamentary procedures. So I have asked Vice Chair Eater to read Resolution SP-12-21-38 in 54 for a motion.
Resolution FY22 calendar change. Whereas Duluth Public Schools is proposing action to address staff and student safety, including the impact of staffing shortages on district operations by extending the 2021-2022 winter break, and whereas with general staffing shortages, every position in the district has been impacted. And whereas the district needs to ensure that sufficient custodial, clerical, child nutrition, paraprofessional, transportation, support, childcare, and instructional staff to safely serve our students, and whereas the district wants to ensure student, staff, and family safety by providing COVID testing opportunities for students and staff as they return to school from winter break, and whereas due to the recent increases in case numbers as well as the unknowns related to the new variant, the district is planning to offer testing through local public health and our community partners on Monday, January 3rd. And whereas the district also recognizes and acknowledges the stress and challenges both families and staff are facing due to the pandemic. And whereas the district wants to give students, school staff, and their family an extended break to recognize these efforts and sacrifices and encourage everyone to use this time to get vaccinated or get a booster shot if eligible, and haven't already done so. And whereas the district recognizes that food service and childcare needs must be acknowledged and supported, and the district is proud to be working with our community partners to assist with these vital needs. And whereas the district has proposed the addition of 2 district-wide closure dates as part of the calendar modification plan after reviewing staffing trends on days prior to and immediately following breaks. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District number 709 that Wednesday, December 22nd, 2021 and Monday, January 3rd, 2022 will be non-school days. The district will be closed and staff will be compensated. Resolution SP-12-21-3854-FY22 calendar changes.
And just say, I'll make this motion. I'll make this motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
So we've made a motion by Member Eater and a second by Member Loeffler Kemp. Now we'll open for discussion. And Superintendent Magus, do you want to lead this? I know you have some slides that are...
Sure. No, and I apologize. I still have a...
You want to talk, John?
Sure. Pardon? Oh, sorry. As I said, you want to talk, John.
Here's a cough.
Thank you.
You can cough too. It's
Thank you.
Don't choke.
And I have a non-contagious continual cough that just won't go away. I apologize. And I will take that cough drop so I can speak clearly. So basically, my safe learning plan update is part of the committee of the whole agenda, but most of the slides pertain to the calendar change. So I will go through those quickly, but still, of course, if there's opportunity for conversation during the committee of the whole portion, we can go on to any of the questions related to safe learning plan in general. So we always work through every decision based on our guiding principles. And this has been uploaded as well to board book. Our current COVID rates continue to climb. This current public rate is at 109.59 as compared to last week's rate, which was 92.12. So there's a pretty significant jump, and the rates continue to rise as they do throughout many portions. I would say we're lucky that our rates and our vaccinated population is considerably higher as far as vaccination rate, and our rates of COVID tend to be lower than the rest of the county, so that's positive. But the proposed calendar change, as we addressed, really we're looking at proposing to be closed for students and staff in the district office, as well as schools will be closed on, we're proposing on December 22nd as well as January 3rd. And really there are three main elements to our purpose in that. The first two are safety related. And the first one is really thinking about the impact of our staffing shortages. Every day we have shortages related to our substitute teachers, as well as other positions, clerical, food service, bus drivers, many positions. And if we look at, for example, the fill rate of our substitutes, quite often they're at about 40%. So if a building ends up, say Denfeld has a need for 10 substitute teachers, only 4 substitutes might fill those 10 positions. And throughout the year, the staff have really come forward in all of our buildings to fill those roles, whether it's a principal teaching for the day, whether it's somebody stepping in and working to do that additional work. Mr. Bonds and myself, we've substituted, and I think it's important for us to address that. So the staffing impacts are one piece, and I can talk later about some things we're doing to mitigate that long term. The other safety related factor is we want to make sure that as many people get booster shots and as many people have testing options prior to and after the break. So we are partnering with Essentia Health to offer a booster clinic on both the east side and west side for our staff, as well as any students who are 18 or older. So we will have booster shot clinics on the 21st so that people can get their booster shot, and if they have any effects, it won't affect the need for additional substitute teachers, yet people could get better before the holiday that's recognized by many within the winter holiday. So that is one part, as well as we will be offering testing for staff and students on January 3rd through Essentia, and we're looking at least 2 sites that we would be looking at. Hopefully they will not be within our schools, but we're still working with Essentia and a couple other groups to find the location for those testing sites. What that will allow from a safety perspective is, if, say, a family is coming in from, maybe they've gone to the cities to visit family for the holidays, and they're coming back, and on Sunday night somebody's feeling symptomatic, it gives those families a chance to test and know that they're safe, rather than send a student or come to school as a staff member without knowing. So those tests will be very important for us to ensure safety, especially given some of the unknowns related to situations going on with variants and other things. Go ahead.
Are those tests going to be the rapid tests then?
So they are there are multiple types of they'll be the Binex tests. So there is a waiting period. Actually the waiting period for the test that they'll be doing is there are a couple of days wait, but we will have some of the rapid tests available as well. But the idea is that we can get people tested and get people moving in the right direction, and also provide potentially some of those rapid tests too, so that people know if they're symptomatic. The tests that we're doing during those testing sites are far more accurate than the over-the-counter tests, and so that's part of the reason why we want to make sure that we're using those tests.
Do you want questions from us as we're going through, or?
Sure. And
Anybody
or I
have
can finish
questions so far?
the third
Okay,
item,
or-
and then we can go on. And I would say that there's also an element of recognizing that our staff and our students have been under extreme stress for many months, and we've asked people to go above and beyond many times in many different ways, substituting being one of the more one of the elements more exemplified through this situation. We know that people have put in hundreds and hundreds of hours of substitute teaching during their preps and other times, and we want to make sure that, because those 2 days before and after break tend to be the dates on which the sub rates are highest and the fill rates are lowest, that we have the staff to truly run during that time. But we do recognize that our staff and our students, our teachers, our administrators are exhausted, and they've worked very hard, and so there is that element of recognition. But there are those safety elements too that are part of this. It's not just adding days to a break, it's ensuring safety and providing a bit of respite. So that is the purpose. We do want to recognize that we need to provide additional supports, though. We know that our schools quite often provide a safe place for children to be, and so childcare is an issue. We know that schools also provide a lot of food and programming, as well as mental health supports for our students, and so we've met multiple times with well over 20 individuals and organizations from the community seeking additional supports and additional ways to make sure that we're able to provide for those students. So the YMCA will be offering Key Zone at 2 sites for our students, and so there will be Key Zone opportunities for childcare. Also, the Boys and Girls Club has changed their programming hours for those 2 days, so they will be shifting to their noon to 8 p.m. programming, which is something they do on non-school days. They also provide meals. And Valley Youth Services, thinking about Hillside and others, they will be expanding their services to students. So there's a number of additional agencies that have done that. We also have co-located mental health programming in many of our schools, and one organization, Northwoods, who has a lot of those, the mental health treatment centers, they are going to be able to either shuffle the appointments for those patients within that same week, or actually we'll be using Rock Ridge, and they will be providing transportation for those students as needed to their appointments. So it's we recognize that mental health needs sometimes are exacerbated by the stressors of the holiday or sometimes unstructured time. So we wanted to make sure that those supports were there for students. And then thinking about nutritional needs and food scarcity, we have been working with the Duluth Superior Foundation as well as our community schools to make sure that our resource mapping is up to date and shared with students. And then we also have outreach to a number of the organizations taking place, like Chums, and taking place with the Boys and Girls Club will be providing extra meals, and there are a number of other services that are working to get things in place for providing those additional supports of food. And I would say that throughout this I've been really impressed with the broad, holistic community support that we've had. People say Duluth Public Schools or the city of Duluth and community of Duluth cares about their schools. I don't think I've ever seen it exemplified like this, with 25 organizations coming to multiple meetings saying, how can I pitch in? And we've had help from Essentia, St. Louis County, City Duluth, the Educational Equity Alliance, Duluth Superior Foundation, the Boys and Girls Club, Valley Youth, and so many other organizations have stepped up to provide assistance. The other thing that we need to recognize, though, is throughout this, before and after, we want to make sure that we're continuing to follow our safety precautions as well as possible as provided by the Department of Health, including promotion of vaccines and boosters, masking, staying home with sick, testing, notification, and all those additional safety layers. So we feel that this is a really robust plan to ensure safety and maximize safety, and also to provide some of the respite that some of our staff and to some degree our students are needing a bit of a break. So that's what we're looking at. And I'm open to any questions.
Member Lockwood,
Yeah,
Member Trinka.
thank you for that update. The 2 key zone sites, have they been identified yet?
I believe they're looking at the downtown YMCA and the Hermantown YMCA at this point, but they're not completely pinned down on those 2 locations. But we wanted to make sure that there's at least 2 locations so that people can access them. And for the most part, with booster clinics and vaccine clinics, we've tried to do an east side, west side thing when possible.
Member Trinka, and then who would like to go next? Is there someone who's, okay.
So I just have a super quick question before I get to the other question. Could you, similar to Member Leffler-Kemp, where are the booster clinics and the testing? You said they're at 2 sites.
Sure.
And which 2 are those?
Sure. So the booster clinics, we are planning to have them at Denfeld and East High School at this point, is where they're planning to do them. As far as the testing, we're still finalizing the location for those 2. Part of what we're trying, because the booster clinics will be occurring while schools are still running, that is easier to do within our sites. We're actually trying to find off-site location, but with bus line access and things of that nature, for an east side and west side location. I've reached out to the city, I've reached out to a few others, and I'm sure we'll have that, because we're trying to avoid opening up the schools and having custodians and having other people having to report and supervise and take those extra steps, because our intention is to try and keep the district closed, in part because of just the stressors that we've had on the system.
Great, maybe we can talk about that with regards
Sure.
to East End site. So how does this closure of the 2 days, I think this is really great for a lot of reasons. How do these extra 2 days impact the language we have in our collective bargaining agreements?
Sure. So I have worked with our bargaining units and met with our bargaining units prior to any announcing of this as well, and they're very much in favor of what we're doing. We are intending to provide pay for individuals. This won't be sick time. And one question was, what about our hourly workers? Would we be paying paraprofessionals and custodians and clericals? And we really feel that it's important to do so, because it's important for us to have this closure, but if it meant severe economic impact to those individuals, we wanted to make sure that there was compensation. I have also, related to minutes of instruction, I've talked to the the Minnesota Department of Education, emailed with Commissioner Mueller, but then talked to one of the assistant commissioners, and they are in full understanding that because of the hardships and because of the extreme circumstances of this year, that this was something that they would permit, and there wouldn't be a negative consequence or penalty to it. There is an effect on the ADM for the 2 days, and the approximate impact there would be about $40,000 to $80,000 for the 2 days.
So we wouldn't be violating any of our collective bargaining agreements by doing this.
I mean, and I'm trying to, so the contracts, some of the contracts may call out a set number of days, and so there would be, because we're paying people to not work on days, I suppose somebody could say, we really want to work that day, but there hasn't been anybody that has expressed concern from the bargaining units, and I did have a meeting with all the bargaining units to offer that as a possibility.
I think it's important that we're compensating them, but I just want to make sure that this isn't going to have legal ramifications potentially. So I think it would be great to get a legal perspective on that. which we can't do right now, I understand, but,
Right, no, and that's why I did speak with the Department of Education, and from a statute perspective, they're comfortable with what we're doing. But I think from contractual perspective, we're not having any negative impact on any of the bargaining units. So I don't know why they would find it a contract violation unless they're saying, you know, we were promised to work 180 days, you're only making us work 178, but you're still paying us for those 2 days, so there would be no negative impact on the bargaining units. There may be a individual or two that has to do some things related to boiler check or things of that nature on those 2 days. And Dave Spooner has been, and Kathy Erickson, our CFO, have been working with those units and those individuals to make sure that there's flexible time for those individuals as well, so there wouldn't be negative impact on anybody.
thank you.
Can you go over the communication plan, especially for parents that don't typically need or use resources that we provide, but now they're in a pickle and need
Sure.
to, so do they call the schools, and how are they gonna know to call the schools, or to contact anyone?
Sure. So when we met with the community organizations, it was also a pretty broad group of people who represent diverse perspectives. You know, we had Katie Danielson there representing families in transition. We had Nate Smith representing our integration specialists. We had representatives from a number of the agencies that serve some of our more at-risk student populations. And I asked them to, like, let's poke some holes in this. Let's make sure that our communication planning is strong. And, you know, I'm working with Katie Kaufman on our normal communication sources, so it will come out through many of the normal channels, but we're also following up to make sure that each of our you know, the housing centers and the places where people are gonna have some of those additional needs, thinking about Lifehouse, thinking about any students that speak second language, and working with our American Indian population, making sure that there's significant individual outreach by the people who are working with them to ensure that everybody has not just the information about the closures, but especially the resource mapping documents and the highlights as far as what is offered to people now. We also talked about what other potential impacts might there be. For instance, would there be a possibility that somebody might be struggling and not be able to, you know, have a car to bring their child to Key Zone? And so we talked about other transportation options or potentially gas cards or things like that for families that needed them. So we really are trying to take into account knowing that the people who have the greatest needs on those 2 days, and those needs could be by anybody, right? You know, because when I was had students who were, or when I had sons that were, you know, too young to be left alone, it would be hard for me if school was canceled. But I think for those populations that have had, sometimes don't have as much access to the communication, we have to double and triple down on those communication sources, and we've started to do so already.
I would love to be able to see a little, a 10-second commercial or something on TV, something like that. I don't know if those are possibilities, but yet, I hope the news coverage will help bridge that gap anyway. And I guess the other question kind of piggybacks off of Member Trinka's questions of, are any of this covered in an actual settled MOU with any bargaining units? It's just what we're doing, and that they've kind of just agreed.
And actually, they've asked for this too. I mean,
Absolutely, I don't want to
they're
discount
wanting
that.
this, and so, you know, this is something that was partly recognition from listening to those individual bargaining units. So I think that is an important piece to recognize. But it is important to make sure that people are well informed.
Absolutely, and I just want to comment that the amount of planning and resource gathering and all of this just for 2 days an incredible task that has come together. I mean, I'm sure we did just as much planning when we went to full distance learning and even before that with hybrid and things, but this was unexpected for a lot of people, and I really commend you and everyone that's working so hard to help our kids for 2 days. I mean, those are significant days, and as we know between yesterday and today how cold it is this time of year, it's very important, and so thank you for working so hard on that.
And I would pass that thanks on to a wonderful team that has been very supportive and very helpful, and also not just our team, but the broader community. And there's actually, the community at large has expressed that they want to publicly show appreciation for our educators, for staff and students and families and what they've gone through. And so there will be more information coming soon, but there will likely be some recognition from other entities related to showing appreciation for our educators, because people know that they've gone through a lot, and also on occasion there's been negative backlash towards educators when there have been extensions of calendar and other times. That's part of the reason why we didn't look at something like that with Thanksgiving or something, because the timeline would have been too short, and we couldn't take into account all these needs that we want to make sure that we have them covered. So I think it's important for our community stated very clearly, we want to make it clear that Duluth supports its educators and they support this calendar change.
Thank you.
I've signed up next, so I'll put you after me. Okay. So, again, I want to piggyback off of even Member Oswald with the work that the team has put in, and an appreciation of the board coming tonight early to pass this. One of the things I think about the MOU or about contractual is that we're voting on it tonight, and so with the school board vote to adopt, to alter the calendar, I think kind of states that as a district, this is what the school board's best idea, best move is. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the board coming early to make this important vote. And again, appreciation for the staff. The whereas clauses, if anybody wants to go to board book, or if the newspaper will look at the whereas clauses, it pretty much details every reason why we're coming together tonight to make this an important thing. So I don't need to go through all of this, because it is all clearly laid out why we are coming together tonight to make this vote. And I think it's important that we highlight that this is a paid for all staff. This is our finance department, our payroll department, our HR department. All of the workers down at our business service building are taking this time off to regroup, regather, rethink, and so I appreciate it. And again, I love the whole community aspect of getting together. It's what we've seen throughout this whole pandemic, and I hope that this isn't a way that we go forward, but it might be. And I think we have to consider that as I listen to all the things across the nation that are happening in school districts across this might have to be done again, a time off, a break, a readjustment, because we are seeing, mental health concerns, behavior concerns, shortages concerns. It's not gonna just get solved by these days. So as a board, and as a leadership, we've got to think about it. And the fact that our community is coming forward in this way now kind of gives us energy to know that if we needed to do it, they've got our backs. So I appreciate that as well. Member Sandel.
Yeah, thank you. Superintendent Magus, you mentioned there wasn't enough time to do this at Thanksgiving, and I completely understand that. But I think sometimes maybe our community doesn't know just how stressed some of our schools were across the district. I mean, we probably had a couple of schools at least that were, I don't want to say near the breaking point, but we're struggling to continue to carry on with staff to support those students that were showing up every day. So I truly appreciate the foresight in looking at this. I like the 14-day time period here now where we can isolate in our family pods, whatever, smaller groups, and hopefully bring our community numbers down, which is what we really need to do. My question is, I'm aware of other districts and communities or other school districts across the state that are doing this. We're not alone, I think. Can you highlight
Sure.
those districts that you are aware of that are doing something similar to what we're doing?
Sure. I know the first two districts in the state that moved forward with this were Osseo and St. Paul. And I had conversation with both of the superintendents, and they very graciously shared their communications, as well as what were some of the points that they needed to think of. So some of the forward thinking that we were able to put into place, like making sure we had childcare, making sure we had mental health supports, that was partly because of kind of the preceding, hurdle that other people had faced. So reaching out to those two districts was pivotal. Anoka Hennepin has moved forward, as well as I think there were probably 5 other districts in the past few days that have announced similar work. So through my work with the Association of Metropolitan School Districts, I knew that there were probably a total of around at least 10 districts, usually larger districts like ours, that were considering something like this.
Thank you.
I would also add to, when Chair Leopold mentioned we might have to do this again, I think one of the community questions that's come up, what are you doing to make sure that you're doing your best to not have something like this occur again? And I want to thank the board for the forward thinking and raising the substitute pay for not only for our substitute teachers, but many of the hourly positions that we've talked about, by giving us permission to do that. That has been very helpful. And I'm also meeting with each of the 3 universities with their student teachers. I have two meetings on Friday with the student teaching groups from University of Minnesota Duluth, as well as University of Wisconsin Superior, to promote and hire subs, but also the floating teacher positions that we've approved for each of our buildings, to make sure that we have people in place that are benefited, know our buildings, and are there ready to serve. So those are some of the things that we're undertaking.
Other board? No? I just want to caution us that we do have a kind of a full presentation too of our call committee, and so if we can just wrap it up in the next 5 minutes, that'd be great. But Member Edith.
I want to take the time just to appreciate a lot of families come in hot Sunday night from Christmas break and everything, and Monday gives them at least an opportunity to get a rapid test, right? The PCR test would take a little bit longer, but if they're not feeling well, they have that opportunity for the PCR test. They also can run out to Walgreens and see if they can get the rapid. So I think that Monday piece to just let families that come in quickly to get that testing is going to be really important. And then the last couple weeks, like many other parents in this district, I've been shown up at Piedmont to do recess or to do lunchroom. And just today, even when the kids were in their classrooms and not outside, so because of the weather, puts additional strain on the staff. And under normal circumstances, that's no big deal, but these are teachers and paras and everybody who haven't had a chance to have lunch. So it's just additional wear and tear. And so I think this ability just to give staff time to just take a deep breath is really, really, really impactful. So I want to thank you all very much. This is very impactful, and I think it shows your appreciation towards the people that you are serving as you lead them through these times. So thank you very much for your hard work and your intentionality and your care of the people that you serve as you lead them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Member Kirby.
Just one question. Since the district will be closed, are student activities like practices and games therefore not available to them?
My understanding is that at this point during those 2 days, there were only practices, and we have suspended the practices for those times, partly because of the desire to have everything closed and not additionally tax the system by having custodians come in, but also allowing for some of that opportunity for reset too, with time between. But actually, I also wanted to thank individual board members for the conversations we've had. And one of the conversations I had with you, Member Kirby, was really focusing on vaccine and booster clinics. And so we added that booster clinic partly because we wanted to make sure that we are doubling down on those safety measures that are best for our community, testing and boosters, as well as the vaccines.
So I think we're ready for the vote. So all those in favor of resolution SP-12-21-3854 regarding our calendar change, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Our motion carries 7-0 on this resolution. I thank you. That's the only agenda item on our special school board meeting, so I'm asking, say that again?
We have to vote to adjourn, yes.
That's
Yes.
what she's gonna do.
So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Member
Second.
Eater, second by Member Oswald. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.